A point I wanted to make here, which I think we need to be very clear on, is not to have colonial amnesia. The most bloody massacres in human history, and I say this with full confidence, have been perpetrated by liberal states. Let's take one example, 1830. The French annexation of Algeria. 1 million people were killed. Genocidal. And by the way, I was a history teacher in the UK for some time. Never did we teach this, and it wasn't even on the national curriculum. But we teach about the Holocaust, those kinds of genocides. Why? Because the French were adamant on censoring this information because it included rape, pillaging of human beings. And pictures are there because this was a time where pictures could be actually generated. Many Muslims don't even know what happened in Algeria for 130 years by a government, a French government, which was not only liberal, listen to this, but the founding fathers of that liberal government and philosophers like Alexis de Tocqueville in his essays to Algiers actually supported the colonial discrimination against who? The Algerians. Because of what? Because of the superiority complex that they had. And this is, to be honest, what we find in the discourse. A superiority complex where you don't even have an objective morality to give us. So the point is this, listen to this. Liberalism can allow for racism and colonialism and tyranny and authoritarianism, whereas Islam can never, I'm not saying has never, but can never, as a religion, can never allow for racism. So the question shouldn't really be, now if you like racism, liberalism can't stop you from being racist. Let me say that one more time. Liberalism as a political philosophy cannot and has not, through its principles or its actions, stop you from being a racist. And if it could, then surely the founding fathers, surely those who came after them and those who came after them wouldn't have allowed a race-based slavery to exist. Race-based slavery in America until the Civil War, which by the way killed the most people in American history in terms of wars. So this is a colonial amnesia, which I think people are having, and forgetting about the fact that most genocides that have been committed in history have been by massive genocides have been by liberal states in the recent history. The Native Americans, what happened to them? Native Americans, and what happened to them is basically ISIS on steroids. If you don't like ISIS, you shouldn't like, I mean, imagine 100 years from now, you speak to an ISIS person, and they say, this is our state, we've overtook it from the people. No one would accept it, but now America is basically premised, is built on the same kind of genocide. And that's the reality. This is liberalism for you, yeah? Westward expansion, manifest destiny, these were all liberal concepts. Please don't try it. We know your history. We know your history very well. And we know your present as well. And the question now is, can it be legalistically justified? He says, well, there's racism in the Middle East, I agree with you. But there's racism against black people, and racism against Filipinos, and racism against, even Arabs are racist against themselves. And racism is a problem. And I agree with all of what you said there. I don't have any disagreement with you on these points. But that's a straw man. I didn't say anything about it. I'm not here to defend the Middle East. If I was here defending the Middle East, I promise you he'd win the debate. I'm here to defend Islam. Qala Allah wa qala Rasul, Allah and the Messenger. I don't care what the Muslims do. Muslims are only applicable to the discussion if they form part of the ijma', for example, in a jurisprudential sense. He says, Islamic colonialism. Well, look, even if there was Islamic colonialism, I was made very clear. I can't stand here and defend 1,400 years of Islamic history. Very clearly, if there was Islamic colonialism with the connotations that it implies, and you are asking me to condemn it, which is misappropriation of land, taking people out of their homes, that's wrong. We don't believe in that, but we do believe in an age of empire, where there was a medieval realist form in an international relations perspective of power relations. If you know your neighbor is about to take you over, and you have two choices as a government, then it's not morally objectionable from my perspective to offer them the ultimatum first. It's not a UN style situation where we can agree. And Islam says if there are peace treaties in place to stop that from happening, and we're sure that our neighbors will not do that, then those peace treaties must be respected. So if my neighbor, if I was living in the medieval period, and my neighbor, my geographic neighbor said, I'm not going to, come into you, try and overtake you, you don't overtake us, and there was an agreement, I would say it's haram, wrong, morally unacceptable for them to invade. But unless the neighbor can provide such guarantees, then I would say it becomes possible and an option in that context, because you either eat or you're going to get eaten, as you would say in a biological sense, Darwinian sense. So really, these are the points.